30, 40 acre array that's in the megawatt capacity. This is 200 kilowatts, which is, much larger than a home, but it's not 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 modules. So the cost to remove this system is substantially less compared to utility scale solar projects. As far as a value to remove this array, Mass DEP for landfills publishes numbers, or they require $70,000 per megawatt AC to remove the solar array on a landfill. This is, somewhat less complicated, in my opinion, to remove. Just the topography it's generally flat out there, although there, there's considerations of the geotechnical ability. So just downgrading the 70,000 kilowatts to a 200 kilowatt array, $70,000 per megawatt, just a straight ratio to a 200 kilowatt array would put it in the value of somewhere around $10,000. And that's for a landfill system. Since this isn't a landfill system, in our opinion, it's somewhere around the $4,500 range to take that off in 2021 dollars, not in 2070, 2050 dollars. So I'm trying to remember what the next question was the cost occurrence. The goal of this project is to reduce the operating cost of the septic system and the treatment of the waste generated by Avalon Bay, which a portion is low-income housing. So on Avalon Bay's side, tying up that money and maintaining a bond would financially hurt them, and it would be distributed to the residents directly at the low-income housing.
You want to back that statement up, because that's not true. There's 100 and something units in there at who knows how much rent per whatever it is. It's a blip in the radar.
I can't tell you exactly how much it's going to be, but I'm guessing it would pass through to somebody.
Yeah.
So I would agree. It's not $100 a month. It could be, a few cents. Yes. But there is a financial burden, or a minor financial burden. So that, that's our opinion on it. You guys may have a different opinion.
Okay. Jeff, I have a question for you on in the decision that you guys have written. Number 5 is what we were talking about, the abandonment and decommissioning of this. These numbers, this 2 years and 150 days, is that in our bylaws somewhere?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe that's quoted from our bylaw.
Can we change that?
You mean not change our zoning bylaw? You want to
Change the condition.
What are you hoping for?
Instead of 150 days, give them 90 days. It's been sitting empty for 2 years. They don't need 150 days to get rid of it.
Would you, I think you would be interested to even go down to like a year and then 90 days weather dependent?
Yeah, I think weather dependent would be the big one, right? If this goes down, like December,
Yep.
we'd prefer to remove it in May than February. Other than that,
1 year and how many days?
90 I think is fine.
Okay.
So if it's not working within 1 year,
And most communities it's usually less than a year, just for your reference, for their bylaws it's 120 to like 6 months is what a lot of communities in Massachusetts recommend for it.
Yeah.
And is Avalon going to own this system?
Yes.
can we put a condition if it changes ownership, they have to come back before us?
Well, so a couple things. So back to the condition of approval. We can take the number 5, that's not an explicit condition of approval, make it an explicit condition of approval, and you want it to be removed within 90 days of when? What time period?
If it hasn't operated for 1 year.
1 year, and then 90 days to remove from the
90
1 year.
days.
Okay. Second, And then your next question, sorry, Jay?
It changes ownership.
So if there's a change in ownership, this is a comprehensive permit. There's a process for when there's which seems unlikely, but if there were, that's a change of the comprehensive permit that would not be considered a substantial change under 760 CMR, but there's a process called out for if they are changing ownership of that, and that, in my opinion, would supersede whatever this board does for this one particular modification decision. That would have to go through the normal process of changing ownership, in my opinion. But if you would like, for the sake of your comfort, you want a condition about change of ownership, what would you like it to be? Ownership of the large-scale solar energy system.
Well, if Avalon Bay changes ownership of the whole project, right?
Okay?
That they would have to come back to us for this comprehensive permit.
As long as we're not imposing a restriction that's more strict than what is already out there in 40B and 760 CMR, that's fine. As long as we're not inconsistent with state law and regulations, we can do that.
That's fine.
So we can, it already may have to come back to you, and it would just be considered not a substantial change. But we can add a condition that's explicit to that.
Okay.
Again, we can't overwrite state law, but we can call notice of attention out to that.
So number 4, Jeff, on page 4 or 6, right above the abandonment, talks about lighting. They have just said that they're not going to light anything up, so do we need to make changes to that paragraph?
So I think the concern that is listed here, they're only required to provide lighting that's required for safety measures. And they said that they're not, the concern is also shielding it from abutting properties. And so the lighting that is there now isn't going to change. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
And so I'm not sure that actually applies. I think it's satisfied. What is there now is there. It's not going to be any worse, and there wouldn't be any more glare or spilling onto abutting properties than there is now, and that's, would have nothing to do with the solar energy system.
And those solar panels face away from the apartment buildings on the hill and all the residents around, correct? They face down the hill?
They face towards Durkee Lane.
Towards the road.
So they're going in the opposite direction than I thought they were going.
Towards, yep, south.
What kind of glare do you get off solar panels?
They're dark in background, so, and their whole purpose is to absorb photons. So we install these at airports without, blinding pilots. So very limited to no glare.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about the decision or questions for the applicant?
Just have one Scrivener's, Mr. Chair. On page 5 of 6, condition number 7, we have a phrase that says identifying recordable plan sheets. There's no intention that there be recordable plan sheets, only the plans that they provide would be appended to the decision modifying the comprehensive permit. So it would be there just attached to the decision. It wouldn't be like a separate plan that gets recorded in a plan book and page at the registry. So we would ask that we could strike that.
Now, as technology advances, is there any chance that you could be updating this system, upgrading it?
It's possible, but unlikely. We're going to be making electricity, and the cost of going onto site and having labor and wiring and the processes to getting approvals and things like that. So, no, there's no expectation that in 20 to 40 years it will be upgrading.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this issue, either in favor or against?
I've just, there's a
correspondence here, Jeff, from, I'm not quite sure who the generating parties are, but it's in our packet. It mentions that Steve and Dennis from
Yep, that's from DEP.
DEP, no support structures shall penetrate the footprint, so it cannot impair the function of the operation here. Those 3 points in that letter, are they should they be part of the decision? Are they, or?
They don't have to be. It's a separate approval issued by DEP, but if this board feels more comfortable, it wouldn't be inconsistent with what they're already required to do, so we can certainly incorporate that, if that would make you.
I mean, it's a separate missive here. If it's part of the decision, maybe it's got a better anchor to,
Sure, why don't we do that?
That's
permanently part of it.
absolutely fine.
If they do have to remove any portion of it, who pays for that then?
Avalon Bay.
Avalon Bay can pay it. I mean, if, to do a repair on the system, okay, Avalon.
Yep, yeah, as a contractor, we're selling them the full system. It's their asset. It's like a refrigerator in your home, you know. I'm not responsible once it's in your house and operating. It's theirs.
Okay, nothing else? So Jeff, what course of action would you like us to take tonight?
First, I'd appreciate if you'd close the public hearing, and then if you could take a motion to approve the requested modification to the comprehensive permit, making reference to the draft decision in the packet as amended per your discussion tonight.
Okay,
Move to close the public hearing.
So, second.
all those in favor? All right, we need a motion as stated by Jeff.
I'll make a motion to, as quoted Jeff's conditions.
Second.
Referencing the draft decision with the changes that staff has recorded tonight. Paul?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fitzgerald, yes. Jim?
Yes.
And Scott McKay, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So they were all set.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Get at it. Good luck. Good luck.
Down to the- Go Sox.
We'll see how that. Not good.
Okay, the next article, number 2, 60 Elm Road was continued from September 16th. The applicant has requested postponement without discussion to November 17th. Can I have that motion?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item is 53 Elm Road. Also a continuance from September 16th.
Good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of the Gibbonses, who are proposing to build a new home at 53 Elm Road. Also with me to my left is Dan Doherty, the builder. Since the last meeting, we've made some significant modifications to the plan and completely redesigned the proposed house. We've cut the garage size from 2 cars down to 1 size. The footprint has been reduced to 1,080 square feet, which is 30 by 36. There is a small deck that's going to be the back of the house. The new house meets the left side setback requirement of 15 feet, meets the rear yard setback of 30 feet, and proposes a greater setback than existing to the front and right side. So as a result of these modifications, we've requested a withdrawal without prejudice of the prior variances that were requested. And with that, I will turn it over to the board. Be happy to answer any questions.
I'm glad to see the size has changed. I think you guys have done a great job in listening to us, and I really have no issues at this point.
So I just gotta do one question. The plan we received is not dimensioned. I think it has to be. I don't know what our rules say, but it strikes me that we shouldn't accept non-dimensioned plan.
The floor plan, David?
Height and floor plan.
Well, height and floor plan, yeah.
Oh, and so it leads into my next question is, what is the proposed height relative to the abutting structures and the one across the street?
You understand the question?
Yep,
Yep.
it'll be lower than what's below us.
Yeah, it'll be lower than the house to the
Then right
left.
next to that.
Well, how about some numbers, guys?
I don't
This
have
is your
exact-
business.
I don't have the exact numbers right now.
It'd be 30, less than
I
30
don't,
feet.
you know,
Less than 30 feet.
or, it's unacceptable to me to be discussing this project if they can't answer the questions.
Well, it's less than 30 feet. What 34 is what's you can have. Will be below that.
5 feet, I believe.
So the box is 30 by 36?
Yeah.
Is that what it says here on the plan?
Yeah.
So under zoning bylaw, they're allowed, I believe, to have a building height of 35 feet.
So just scaling it off, I'm going to say we're going to be like 28.
You know, the reason I'm asking the question about height is if you go down in that neighborhood, there are some structures have already been raised and rebuilt, but there are a number down there that haven't. And I think the height of this, as well as other plans, is rather important. I mean, they've diminished the plans, which is true, but they're packing an awful lot in there, and effectively, from my point of view, it's a 3-story house, because they can't submerge the basement.
I think to Dave's point, though, is we had requested that we always have dimensions on all the plans that we received by the board. And
Well, I can say right now, we're not to exceed 29 feet.
different issue. The procedure we want to have in place is when we get a packet, the dimensions are there, so we can read them. Instead of guessing on them.
Well, the only dimension that I can see is missing is the height dimension. The other dimensions are on there. We don't have detailed dimension of every room.
There's no dimensions on this plan.
On what plan?
What do you mean dimension? On the site plan?
No, on the dimensions of the structure.
You have the same plan? He's got it?
36 by 30, and it's got,
Where am I missing that?
There's like 3 pages that says it.
Is it not on your, do you have it?
Page is 36 by 30.
It's there.
There's 2 or 3 pages, Dave.
Yeah,
The box is marked. There is no height, though.
there's no height, but there are dimensions for the,
Yeah, there are. You got them, Dave, right there.
Could you repeat? It's lower than the house to the left? The height of this one?
yeah, the roof line will be lower than the house to the left.
Any other questions from the board? Comments?
I'm in agreement with Scott. I think they did what we asked them to do. I just don't know, Jeff, do they have to come back before us with the height on the plan, or can they revise it and give it to you? How would that work?
So that's up to the board. The board, I think, has a clear building footprint in front of them with setbacks. And I don't know, Joe didn't get a chance yet, but they started with, I forget how many petitions. There were really several for variance. I think there was another, there might have been a special permit to intensify a pre-existing nonconformity. And then the general special permit to demolish and reconstruct a non-conforming dwelling. So of all the initial asks, they're down to just the special permit to demolish and reconstruct the non-conforming structure. The board knows that they can't exceed what is allowed under zoning bylaw, which is 35 feet. If the applicant is willing to specify a maximum building height, that could be a condition of approval. Or you could also require that building height information be provided, at a future meeting. You could condition it, and the hearing could still be closed tonight. It's up to the board. And just have that be provided before they can act on any decision.
That makes sense if we can do that and close the hearing and get this
Mm-hmm.
wrapped.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree. Yeah.
Get it wrapped.
Move on.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience to speak in favor of this project? Anybody in the audience to speak opposing this project?
Good evening, gentlemen, Mr. Chairman and the board.
Your name for the record, please?
My name is Brandon McNeil. My mother is Barbara Hanson. And we also agree that we like the way they downsized the project, and it's a lot more acceptable to my mother, the way they're going to go about doing this. I just wanted to go on the record as saying we still haven't got that lot line situation cleared up. The surveyor that I hired, I tried my best to get him to complete this on time, and he didn't. Kept telling me he's going to get in touch with Mark and meet Mark out there to try to figure out what he used for bounds. And I know we're at the 9th hour now, and I understand that. You explained that quite clear to me last month. So we have a few questions just about when the project proceeds. How are they going to go about the hot top? Are they going to saw cut the hot top so that my mother's driveway doesn't get damaged? And oh yeah, the tonight's agenda shows last month's variances and requests. So tonight, what are they asking for? Just a special permit?
Yes.
Is that correct? The
Yes.
variances are off the table now?
Yep, there's a letter in here withdrawing those without prejudice,
Okay.
Requesting.
requesting. Okay, as far as the hot top and things like that, it's not of our purview with this board to get into those details. Buy Mr. Doherty a cup of coffee and he'll discuss it with you.
We're happy to accommodate all the neighbors as best we can with anything to move forward. I've actually, on David's request the last time, Mr. Earl, did have an opportunity to talk to some of the neighbors, and they really didn't have any, major concerns. One concern I had was the guy across the street was just worried what was going to happen to his taxes, if this was going to affect his taxes. So, that was his objection to it. Like, he says his taxes keep going up every year. I said, well, that's Westford, and mine do too. So, it is. But that was his complaint, and that was John. So, other than that, I haven't had any other complaints, and so I did reach out to a couple of people, and we actually had a meeting with the neighbors directly on the other side, and they don't have any problems with it either. So I don't see any big objections now, and there shouldn't be really. this point.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I did send you the plot plan that said 1952, and it showed that the line along the lake is 38 feet, and they have it marked down as 42. So there's a discrepancy there. I don't know if you saw that in the packet or not.
We did see that plot plan, but as I stated at the last meeting, today was the day. And I think if you look at that 1952 plot plan, there's a spot where the dock is. That doesn't appear to be in that distance. So if that dock was 4 or 5 feet wide, there's your 42.
Also, 52 to today is a long time for that small, that portion of the lake isn't wide open. I mean, bodies of water change over that number of years, and it's considerably possible that a couple more feet has been the difference over that period of time, I
Right.
would think.
And we're not arguing.
Where you're, you know, stopping the land and starting the lake, that's not an exact measurement probably, I would guess.
No, I guess
52 till 2021.
our concern is, you know, the house is 9-1, but they're also talking about an earthen berm. So the earthen berm is going to come out almost to the lot line. So there's going to be a big pile of dirt right there on the edge of the line where my mother's backyard is. That was our only concern. I mean, we are very happy with the proposed building. I just wanted to go on record that we still believe the line might not be 100% correct, but I have hired another surveyor, but I know my time is up for that, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, he did tell me he was going to meet up with Mark and try to get with him. But you guys also said to these gentlemen that they should meet with the neighbors. Well, my mother is the direct abutter, and he did not meet with my mother and try to discuss this at all. Mrs. Gibbons did go over, but I don't know what was said between my mother and Mrs. Gibbons, but I don't think it was much. She did give us a copy of the plan. It was a couple of days ago, and like I said, we are happy with what's going on. We're cutting hairs now, like 4 or 5 feet. But when you're talking about a small lot and the earthen berm, that's what our concern is. And I just wanted to voice my concern. And I still don't think the lot line is correct, but I know that you guys are going to move forward. And I'm in an unfortunate situation because of COVID and everything else that's going on. Try to get a surveyor on a drop of a dime. It's very difficult. This other guy was less than scrupulous, and I do have another person, but I won't be able to complete it tonight. But that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience?
All right, never mind.
Sorry, I'm Rick Reddock, 55 Elm. Guess I thought I was getting here early, and I got here a little late. But in any event, we did meet, and so, yeah, we're really happy with what the net result is, and thanks for your input.
Okay.
And now I'll go back to watching the slaughter.
You need to speak to the other.
All right.
Sent
The board have anything else?
to that surveyor.
No? Okay. Are we prepared to close the public hearing?
So moved. Sorry.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so we need a motion to approve a special permit to demolish and reconstruct a dwelling what's the correct terminology, with less impact and
Less non-conforming.
less non-conforming? Non-conforming dwelling with a larger area, building footprint. Allow for new non-conforming side yard setbacks of 6 foot 2 where 15 is required, 21 3 where 25 feet is required, respectively. Do I have that motion?
Do we want to put something about the height?
Yes. So, does staff feel confident in reviewing the height of this building? Or do you want to bring it back to the document back to another meeting? Or what do you prefer?
I'm comfortable.
I mean, I have no problem.
Staff would be comfortable, if the board prefers, just to have staff review it, make sure it's underneath a certain height prior to, say, issuance of building permit.
Okay.
So,
What's the height, Mr. Doherty?
29.6.
so under
30
30?
feet.
Work?
I heard under 30 feet or under, right?
30 feet or under? Okay.
So, just for the record, you're looking to approve under 3.6.8, special permit?
6.8.2.
Point 2, yes. Okay. So did we had a motion in a second?
Yes.
Okay, Paul?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Scott F?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
And I also will approve.
So then you also need the motions to, if you want, allow the withdrawal
Withdraw all those other things.
without
Yes,
prejudice.
yep. We have a motion to withdraw the other variances.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Then there's also the special permit under 3.6.6, they're requesting to withdraw without prejudice.
So can we have a motion to withdraw without prejudice, 3.6.6?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That it? Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you
guys,
very
we're all
much.
set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 19 Francis Hill Road.
Hello.
Good evening.
The Sox are down 7-0. So I'm Deanie Healy-Coffin
I'm Chris Coffin.
from 19 Francis Hill Road. I think we submitted everything except, and I apologize for having not, I got an email from Sierra, thank you.
Before you continue, 1 minute. I have a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're on.
Sorry, Scott.
That's okay.
Been a while since I've been at meetings.
You're on the wrong side of the desk.
Yeah, that's okay. I've been on the wrong side for a long time. So we submitted, we put in for a 24 by 24 garage attached to the house. A house is existing 23 feet high, and we do not, Sierra had sent me an email saying, regarding pictures of garages, which I've been up in Maine, so I just took these pictures. And I know that everybody hates getting things late in their packet, but I do have pictures of four houses that abut us that have two-car garages, if you would like me to distribute those.
You can. I think the issue is when we approve something like this, we typically approve the plot plan with your variances or special exemptions. And then we also like to see a building plan of the garage. So is it just a two-car garage with nothing
Just a
over it?
two-car, yeah, it's a
Or is
two-car,
it-
24 by 24, typical, nothing above it, no room above it, just a spot to put two cars in.
Okay.
And I'm happy to, if you want to, put a condition on it, if you so approve of it, a condition that when we go for the building permit, that it has to be approved by your board for the, excuse me, for the designated height.
As far as an actual plan of the garage itself.
Right, so.
We haven't done it.
Okay.
We have the dimension of the garage, but not the actual
We haven't
plan of the
architecturally done it.
look of the structure.
We haven't spent that money to do it.
Yeah.
Now, what we typically do, Danny, is say, we reference the plans in the decision.
Yep.
So the building inspector has that, and he makes sure that the dimensions are proper and that the plans match what's as built. And that's not, this isn't certainly as big as some of the things we deal with residences. It's a
Right.
garage. That's why I think the issue with the plans comes up. But it's always referencing the decision, and then the building inspector has it in hand.
Right.
So I don't think we circumvent that here, or, it's attached to the house, right?
It's attached to the house, and the height of the house is 23 feet high,
A little less, yeah.
a little less than 23 feet, so certainly the garage would be less than that. I mean, I don't know the specific height. I know it's a 24 by 24 that we want to put in just for a two-car garage. If you want to put a specific height on, I don't know, what's the typical height of a garage? I don't know.
Do this without plans?
Or if you want to put a condition that it has to be approved, by this board, that you have to approve the proposed plan before the building inspector issues a permit. That's fine, too.
So that puts you to next month.
Well, if you can you close the hearing?
From the grumbling I'm hearing from the board, I don't think so. It will be continued to next month, and you would have to submit a plan to us. We would look at the plan, obviously, and then go from there, because we have to reference a plan.
Okay. So this garage that's on here, that's on that's not a plan?
Typically, we want to see a building plan of some kind.
If I may, if the board
Yes.
is amenable to it, maybe similarly to one of the other prior decisions from this evening, if and only if you'd be comfortable with it, perhaps a condition that they submit the architectural plan for staff approval prior to building permit or something. Just if you did want to consider, closing it early.
Again,
That would probably work, and we could.
Well, let's hear a comment from...
again, I think the staff has to see what's being submitted, and we should know that we require plans for this type of project. And then we won't have, that would alleviate going through all this, and this makes it kind of awkward for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize, our office missed that.
How does the board feel about the staff reviewing the plans?
I have no problem.
I have no issue with that.
I have no issue with it. I mean, it's a garage, it's not like there's bedrooms and bathrooms and septic, and there's no septic issue.
Yeah, I guess the
there's no
intent
bedroom issue.
It's a brand new septic
It's the
system.
intent, it's gonna be a garage, right?
Right,
You're not
just
gonna
a
have bedrooms
two-car
upstairs
garage.
and all that
But
stuff.
it'll show you roof line and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Right. I mean, before a building permit is issued, certainly there'll be an architectural plan, but, and I'm happy to, make it contingent upon the staff approving it, et cetera.
And it's also the dimensions, the setback has to be exact. So
Right.
that 24 feet has to fit into what we see here, and
Right.
the setback is within that
Right,
number.
right.
So as long as,
So we hear your concerns loud and clear, but what you've done in the past, in some cases, you've ruled on a petition before you and had an explicit condition where they would come back to this board just at a public meeting, where you need a majority of the board to say, okay, now that we see the specific, now that you ironed out all the details, what it's going to look like, you then make sure that it's consistent with your findings and your decision, that it wouldn't be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. So you could go to that, it's not an extreme, you've done it before, or, otherwise I'd say just give guidelines to staff and the building commissioner to make sure they fit in this box and this height, and sort of character gets to be a little not clear. So, but if a majority of the board sees that at a public meeting, you can decide. You have total discretion here.
okay, doing the latter, leaving it up to staff if we.
Do you have to go to conservation for this?
We do.
Have you been there yet?
I have not, but I have spoken with them, and they don't seem to have an issue with it, but the biggest issue was that we needed to get a special permit. Because it's going to be on the front, where it's located. If you look at the plot plan, where the garage is going to be located, it's sort of the only place you can locate it. The wetlands are way back here. And of course, this house was built, it's an acre and a half, but it was built non-conforming because we didn't have the bylaws back then.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
So Jeff, are you essentially saying we would close the meeting tonight with the condition of?
That's an option you could, if the board were amenable to this. You already have a plan that shows the location and the dimensions. So you could condition it that they have, now there's some risk that they have. Who knows, if this board turnover, that's a risk that they would take on, that the final building elevation plans, or architectural plans would have to be reviewed by a majority of the board at a future meeting. Just a public meeting, not a public hearing with a butter notification. Just, you get a sanity check to say, yep, it's not gonna wreck the character, won't be substantially more detrimental. We've done it in the past.
A non-scheduled meeting.
No, at a regular meeting.
No, regular meeting.
So the next
It's just an
meeting-
agenda item. Not a public hearing.
So you're gonna approve it tonight, subject to us looking at it at the next meeting on architectural plans,
Or whenever they're ready to move forward.
or whenever they're ready to move forward.
Right, so essentially, yeah, the risk
All
they're
right,
taking
I
is
see.
if they come back with a plan and we don't like it,
Yeah, that's,
then,
Right.
but they have some comfort knowing that we would approve it with those conditions, so you could, all right,
I have
Exactly.
no problem.
I'm fine with that, that's good.
See, I'd like to see how Chris is gonna marry the garage in with the salt box roof line. Do you know how you're gonna?
Well, I mean, it can be a salt box garage,
Yeah.
which would work. For sure.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak in favor of this project? Anybody in the audience to speak opposing this project?
What would you would have something for us next month, an architectural
It
plan?
wouldn't be next month, but
Yeah.
it would be eventually.
So you're not in any big rush
No.
to do this?
No.
Okay.
I have no problem.
That's fine. I think that works. Close it, get it done, and then make sure it fits into the box as Jeff suggested.
and they couldn't apply for a building permit until they,
Right, and then we also want to go to the
Do it
conservation.
to get a permit anyway.
Yeah. I'm not going to go to the conservation until we get this approved.
Right, you'll have the approval to go there.
Right,
tonight,
right.
And then you can work on the plan
Go from
and give
there,
it to
yeah.
the building inspector. and
Exactly.
So it kind of lines it up properly, I guess.
All right.
We have to add if we suggest to vote to approve, we have to add that condition that we,
yeah, I think you could say as conditioned tonight.
approve with that condition that we,
You've got it.
Sierra's on this.
all right, good.
She is.
Tiger it.
Okay, so can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So tonight, we are looking for a special permit in accordance with section 3.6.6.
I'm sorry, did you vote to close?
I just heard a motion in a second, I didn't hear the actual vote.
We have a vote, please?
Yes.
Yes. Aye, okay. Okay, so special permit under section 3.6.6 for the town of Westford zoning bylaw to allow the alteration of a non-conforming dwelling via an attached 24 by 24 garage with a front yard setback of 27.1, whereas 50 feet is required. This property is located at 19 Francis Hill. Paul?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
I'm sorry, was there a
You gotta get a
motion and
motion
second?
for that.
Jim said, Scott, Jim said close it.
Move to close.
I don't know.
So can we have a motion?
Jay second.
To approve?
Sorry.
Second.
Second.
Jay?
Yes.
Yeah,
Paul?
yeah.
Scott?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'll also vote in the affirmative. With the conditions that were stated.
Thank you.
All right.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good thing we didn't ask for a character reference, I'm telling you.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. Thank you.
Future.
Oh, my God. Too much going on tonight. My mind is fried.
Here we go.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Now we're doing
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda is 124 Main Street, lot number 4. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Chairman, I would like to recluse myself from this petition, so.
You got it.
So move.
Second.
So, Mr. Chair.
We will, Dave, would you sit on this?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Attorney Robbins.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from the law firm Farrell and Robbins. I'm here tonight representing Joe Caldo, who's also with me tonight, over my shoulder. Also with us tonight is Matt Watson from Lantuck. He's a civil engineer. And Jim Zegowitz from the MZO Group. He's the architect. As the board knows, I'm here tonight to discuss the property known as Hicks Farm. It's located at 124 Main Street. And we're actually here tonight for two separate forms of relief. And I'll just go through that quickly just to explain. The first relief we're looking for is under section 10.2 of the zoning bylaw for conversion. The bylaw for conversion allows for a dwelling that's in existence prior to the adoption of the zoning to be converted into up to 4 units. So we're proposing 2 units under the conversion, and just for simplicity's sake, while I'm going through my presentation, I'll call those the conversion units. The other relief will allow for an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use, which is the business, to 2 more units, and also the demolition and reconstruction of a pre-existing non-conforming structure, that's the office, into 2 dwelling units. And again, for simplicity's sake, so I don't have to say that again, I'm going to call those the pre-existing non-conforming units. On those 2 new units that are going to be in the office, one of them will be deed restricted to a 55 and over resident. So just to be clear, there's 4 units total. I know the conversion bylaw itself allows for 4 units, but since the office itself, even though it's pre-existing non-conforming and came with the house, is not attached, the proper zoning method is to do the 10.2 conversion in the house and then use sections 3.6.2 and 3.6.8 for the conversion of the existing office. And for a total of 4 using those 2 sections. Also, I saw in the notice that it also said in a larger footprint, but there will not be a larger footprint. Everything out here will be a smaller footprint, including the office itself. And I'll let Matt and Jim get into that in a little bit more detail later. Since we are talking about pre-existing nonconformity, I would like to give some background on the property itself. I know the assessor card is part of your application, but the original house and the office were built in approximately 1850. I did find that they were on the original maps from the town of Westford in 1853 to 1855 as the house of Levi Snow, who was a shoemaker and also the caretaker for Fairview Cemetery, which was at that point called the Snow's Burying Ground. And I don't know when it was turned into Fairview, but I thought that was interesting. It was then bought by the Gregg family and converted into a funeral home and also used as a residence. And I also found out they sold ponies there. And I know that for a fact because my dad got a pony from there when he was 9. And I won't tell you what year that was or how old he was because he might be watching tonight. The land was then sold to the Hicks property, to the Hicks family, excuse me, where it was used as a business and a residence and basically stays in the same form that you see today. Again, the history and the current use are pertinent to this board because they're going to have to make a finding under 3.6.2 that the change in use from that business use to the 2 units in that new structure are not substantially more detrimental than the existing business use as it's been in its forms, various forms, and as it existed for the Hicks Farm. And I think following our presentation, you'll find that the proposed development on Lot 4 will be a net benefit to the town, and no part of it will be detrimental whatsoever. And one of those improvements is really the removal of many of these structures you see at the top of this plan, and the removal of the business use. And I think it would just be helpful, I don't know how easily you can see those. I think this plan is also in your attachments, and I'll go through them quickly. Oh, that's much better, thank you. It's here. I'm going to focus on Lot 4 because that's where we're proposing all of our development, but if the board has any other questions about any structures off of Lot 4, we'll answer that for you as well. But on Lot 4 itself is the main house, which is the house that's closest to the street, which we're maintaining, which includes 12 rooms right now, including 5 bedrooms. To the left of that on the property is marked as office. The office actually also contains 12 rooms, including 9 offices. Attached to the back of the office, even though it's not marked, is a workshop that also contains 2 rooms, a workshop and a small office. And then behind that are the garage bays that go along with the office. So that's really the L back portion of the office. Behind the existing house, there's something marked APT, that's the apartment. On the first floor of the apartment, there's actually a small garage in there and a small office. It goes up to the second floor where there's about 5 rooms, including another bedroom. And attached to that, there is another area that goes off to that shop area that you see goes from Lot 4 onto Lot 5. And approximately 1,500 square feet of that shop is on Lot 4, and the remainder of it is on Lot 5. Yeah.
What lots does your client own?
We're focusing on Lot 4. They own all lots 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So our proposal is to remove everything except the house on Lot 4, all of the structures that exist there today. And like I said, the office will actually be demolished and then reconstructed into 2 units, one of which will be age restricted. And again, I'll let Jim tell you in a little bit more detail, but the purpose of that structure is to look more like a carriage house, to really try to have the same historical features of the existing farmhouse go into the carriage house. It was one of the main reasons when we came back to the board, we're not going to try to use that apartment area or the rear area, because the office serves 2 purposes. It keeps a consistent architecture across the front of the property, and also allowed us to put parking garages in the back of that house, which was something important to not only this board, but the abutters when we spoke to them about parking, even during the first hearing. I will tell you that the improved plan, many of those, can we actually go to the next slide, Sarah? And where's the next plan? I got it. Okay. Sorry, we brought boards because we weren't sure if you're going to have power, so we'll do the boards and the slides at the same time. So this is the improved plan, and I just wanted to flip that over and let you know we did meet with the abutters prior to applying to the Zoning Board of Appeals. A couple of the abutters are actually here this evening. As this board may know, some of the original concerns of the abutters were about that wetland in the rear. Originally, we were trying to get an intermittent stream determination as part of our the resource area delineation. And what that meant is that we would have relaxed setbacks if it was found not to be a stream. We actually withdrew that request to have the intermittent stream determination and got the order without it. So we're going to respect that stream determination and also the resource areas. You can see those red lines. Some of the other issues for the abutters were as to the landscaping and the view to the back of the property. Now, they were concerned, certainly the abutters in the back were concerned where we're coming into the property, that there'd be headlights coming into their property at night. So if you're wondering why there's an earthen berm there with trees on top, that will actually serve to block the headlights going into the abutter's property. And then there's also some lower trees you can see along the back of the wetland area there that I think we're calling the meadow, that there'll be lower trees planted there as well to actually help screen that as well. Also, and it's not on this lot, but on lot 5, there's a barn, and it's actually one of the most beautiful pieces of this property, the old horse barn, and that will be maintained on that lot as well. It's not part of this application, but just so the board knows, those 3 pieces will really help screen a lot of the abutter view shed to any of the new structures on lot 4.
But stable is staying, correct?
The stable saying, yeah. So the other issue was additional parking. Now, we did already have 4 parking spaces in the garage, as you can see, and then 4 out, which meets the zoning bylaw. But one of the abutters suggested, and we actually agreed, that some additional parking would be helpful here. But to try not to create a mass amount of pavement that exists out there today, you'll see those 4 spaces behind them are shown as impervious pavers. So those were integrated into the plan as well. The other thing we did was just do an enhanced landscaping plan. This is the landscaping plan that Land Tech had done, but I also included as part of the presentation an enhanced one so you can actually see what the species will be. And I'll let Matt go through that just at the end of our presentation, just so we can get into that a little bit more detail. Just a couple things to note, and then I promise I'll turn over to Matt and stop talking. The number of bedrooms in this development will be a total of 8. All of the units will be restricted to 2 bedrooms. And Matt will go through it in a little bit more detail, but it's basically, right now on the property, there's 6 bedrooms. That's not including all those other office spaces and all the other space out here. So really, we're adding 2 bedrooms, but we're not increasing any of the system whatsoever out there. In addition, as part of the town of Westford, the master plan, eventually the sidewalk will come down Main Street. There's a pinch point at this property where the town of Westford will need an easement, and we've agreed as part of this development that we'll give the town of Westford the easement that they need to put the sidewalk along Main Street. So that will be a nice addition as well. I think at this point I'll turn over to Matt to just go through the civil details.
Yep, it's here, maybe we could go to the next slide. And I will reiterate most of what Melissa said. I don't think I can say it better, but as we talked about, it's lot 4. It's a 2-acre lot. It's approximately 225 feet wide by 350 feet deep. It does have the wetlands along the rear of the property, just on the rear property line. The new development is 2 units in the farmhouse and 2 units in the office. This plan in front of you is just, it's taking our plan and breaking up into 2 versions. It's the existing and then the proposed. It's nothing new. It's just kind of a clarification that the plan we submitted was a little busy, so we just thought that this would help visualize the existing conditions and then the proposed conditions. The proposed conditions, obviously there's new utilities for each of the units, new water, new gas, new electric. There is gas available on Main Street. The septic system, as Melissa touched on, is in the back. We had originally reallocated it to the front of the property, but after our butter meeting and some concerns to help minimize disturbance along Main Street, we felt it was better suited to put the septic in the back. So we've been kind of working to minimize our disturbance along Main Street. The septic, as Melissa said, currently the house is 5 bedrooms and the office is the equivalent of 3 bedrooms. It's 4,000 square feet. I think it's just shy of 3 bedrooms. And so the total is approximately existing is 8 bedrooms and the proposed is 8 bedrooms. So it's consistent with what's on lot 4 today. And then when we were designing it and working with Jim and the Cataldos, the idea was to try and minimize the view shed or the impacts along Main Street. You have all the vegetation, the tall trees. You've got the office and the house proper that you see, and so really focusing on that. We pulling the development towards the front of Main Street, pulling it away from Douglas Road, pulling it away from the wetlands, kind of doing some of the things that we felt was important to this board. It was certainly important to the abutters. And with that comes the traffic movements, maintaining the existing curb cuts that are there today, the horseshoe-shaped portion in front of the house that Bob had in front of his house, putting the visitor parking off to the left in front of the Carriage House. and then having a single access to the rear for garage parking, and then the pervious paver parking. We didn't want people making up their own parking spaces. We had the room, so we thought the recommendation of the abutters to provide it was a good idea. And all, it helps, and it doesn't have any impact on the riverfront with that parking area. We were able to keep it outside of that riverfront area. And then, I know we've talked about this with this board, with other applications, but kind of the thing that really stands out at us the most is the reduction in the impervious areas on this lot. On the left, you can see all the pavement, you can see the buildings in the darker gray. The lighter gray is all paved areas. This is just lot 4, it's not any other lot. And then on the right-hand side, the pavement is the light gray, and the houses are the orange color. You know, there's almost a 50% reduction in the impervious area. You're going from almost 28,000 square feet to 14.5. It's just under 50%, 33% impervious to 17%. And then in addition, the footprint, if you're just talking about building coverage, and the amount of building that's on lot 4, not counting the pavement, the reduction is almost 4,000 square feet. It's important. You know, I think it's a big number. It's not a small number by any means. You know, the existing house and office is 4,000 and 4,700 square feet. The shop is 1,500 square feet, and we're going down to 2,200 and 3,800 square feet. So again, it's a reduction of just over 4,000 square feet. And I know, and I'll save the landscaping for the end, but I think I'll turn it over to Jim, who'll get into the architecture.
Good evening, Jim Zegos. I'm with the MZO Group Architects, Main Street in Stoneham, as well as being a fellow Westford resident. And I'd like to thank Joe for allowing me to design this project with him and do some work on my own hometown. So the basic design approach on this project would be to develop a compound of historic-looking structures that look like they belong to each other and belong together on the same lot. The one, we intend to improve the farmhouse and create that as sort of the primary structure, and then what we're calling the Carriage House, the other 2 units. It's our intent to create that as a much lower mass building and have the 2 talk to each other with similar design details and materials. For the farmhouse, we plan on giving that a full facelift, a full gut reno project. It'll have new roof, new siding, new windows, new doors, and as well as in the middle of the structure, the L that faces, alongside that faces the street. Currently, if you go by there's a small shed dormer on the 2nd floor, although there is usable square footage throughout the 2nd floor up there. It's one of those situations where it's a half-story, so you get the whole floor, but you can only use the middle part where that shed dormer is. We intend to raise the roof all the way across and gain better usable square footage throughout that area. As well as on the left-hand side, you can see there's a small shed dormer. We intend to pop up the space over there. There is access to that space as well, floor, but we are going to raise the roof and create that dormer so we can actually make some usable space there. As far as what else we can do about that, so maybe you could go to 3 slides just to talk briefly. 1, 2, couple more. Just talk briefly about the intended layout. So the existing farmhouse, at this point, we haven't really gone through and really done an exhaustive study on how to lay the existing, the 2 new units out there. But you can see there's a dark dashed line and designations of Unit 1 and Unit 2 on the plan. The first floor of each unit would have the kitchen, living, dining room, probably an office or study type area, full bath, and in both of those units. And on the 2nd floor, we'd have a master bath, a master bed suite with bath, walk-in closets, common bed, common bath, and a laundry. Both units are, if you look at the numbers there, they're roughly around 2,000 square feet, so it should be plenty to accommodate all of those programmatic elements. Okay, let's move on to the Carriage House. If you can go back. That one. Let's go to the floor plan. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Leave it on the elevations. That's a good place to start from. So the basic design concept here was, the first and probably the main point here was to keep the building low. All the main roofs come off of the second floor plate. So if you were to look at the front elevations of the two buildings side by side, although they may appear to be roughly the same size, all of the roofs on that Carriage House spring from about 10 or 11 feet just above the second floor. So all of the massing will seem much smaller than the more formal farmhouse that has a full second floor throughout the facade. All the usable space on the second floor we'll accomplish through the main gables of the unit and some of these little pop-out dormers that you see. We have included a couple of cupolas up there, just sort of reminiscent of the one that is existing now. I don't know if you remember, but there is a kind of a cool weather vane on an existing cupola that sits on top of the office space. I'd like to actually see that incorporated into the new building. I think it would be kind of nice. It's been there, I think, as long as I've been in town, which has been since I've been about a year old, so I'd love to see that continue. So, on the first floor, let's go to the plan real quick, just slide it down.
Sorry, which one?
The floor plan next one. So on the first floor, on the second floor plans are concerned, each unit is going to be about 2,000 square feet. Both units at this point are currently designed, I think, to meet the requirements of 55 and older, where we have the master suite on the first floor, laundry, common bathroom, kitchen, living, dining room, all down there. And on the second floor, we have a generous bedroom, walk-in closet, bathroom, the common bathrooms, and a nice study loft / swing space. Both units are around the 2,000 square foot range. And as mentioned previously, all four garage spaces are clustered behind the existing building, so as to sort of shade them or hide them from the street. I think it's a much nicer access to the property in terms of having it be an internal courtyard rather than driving around either side of the buildings and having light splash throughout the neighbors' yards. What else? Concern is Type 5B non-sprinkled buildings. There are 2 units apiece. We'll have a 1-hour fire separation between all units, continuous from the basement to the underside of the roof sheathing, as well as a separation between the garage and living spaces. Beyond that, I don't see much. Obviously, they'll be designed and constructed in full conformance with the Massachusetts State Building Code, as well as the International Energy Conservation Code, and the farmhouse will be modified and renovated according to the International Existing Building Code as required by the state. That's about it. If anybody has any questions?
Do the landscape plan?
Yeah, and I think the last plan in your
It'll be
slides-
short.
Yeah, is the landscaping detail, and I think it's worth going through just briefly, just so you can get a little bit more detail on what those spots were on the civil land, because it really shows off some of the landscaping that they want to put on the property.
And I'm not a landscape architect, so I'll be brief. But, and I think I mentioned it quickly, was maintaining that vegetation along Main Street was important. A couple of the trees do get thinned out right along the edge of Main Street. There's some I think some spruces that get thinned out in between the hardwoods. There's a lot of trees that are up against the existing office. Obviously, with reconstruction of that, those trees that are right up against the office all come down. There's a couple in the area for the new parking area or the access to the garage. And so what we tried to do was replicate, tree for tree, and planting a tree for every tree that we're taking down, and that's all the new trees that have pointers going to them. A couple in the front, a couple behind the existing house. And then, as Melissa said, kind of shading the naturalized area along the rear. The tan area would be lawn area in this picture. In the back where the crosshatch is, that's the primary area within the 100-foot of the riverfront. That would be allowed to be restored to a meadow area. It's currently either a horse paddock or grazing or both. And so the intent was to kind of maintain that as a meadow area, but it would not be lawn area that's mowed on a weekly basis. It would be allowed to become natural. I think the intent was you'd mow either once or twice a year, kind of to keep it as a meadow. We would certainly formalize that, anything like that, with the Conservation Commission.
And then the plantings along that would help kind of provide a delineation for that natural buffer, and then the usable space. It helps preserve that meadow-like area. It helps screen the project from the neighbors. It does a couple things. And the trees are all shown on the pictures on the right. On the upper part is the plantings that are the shade trees, and then the lower one are the more ornamentals around the foundation. And then lastly, Melissa's kind of went into the berm, but there's a 4-foot tall berm. It's about 20 feet wide. It has a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, and then a planting shelf on top with evergreens. So not only is it a 4-foot earth berm, but it also has evergreens on top of it. That's to provide screening strictly for headlights coming down that access road, and then turning into the garages. And with that, we'll end it, unless Melissa has anything to add. I don't have anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and sorry, I should have said this at the beginning, but we do need additional approvals if this board were to approve this application. This will require site plan review, since this will be considered multifamily housing. This lot will also require a stormwater management permit, which actually is an improvement to what's there today. And this will also require, anything in the rear will require approval from the Conservation Commission additionally. For anything on one of the other plans, you can see the 2 red lines. Anything within that area will require approval of the Conservation Commission. With that, I think we've covered everything, and we're happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Jeffrey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 2 quick points. As the applicant clearly stated, there's 2 separate petitions before you. I think one of them, the conversion, is much more straightforward. That special permit avenue is tied to just that structure, the fact that it predates adoption of the town zoning bylaw. So that's, I think, fairly straightforward for this board. The other is not as straightforward. They're looking to take the pre-existing non-conforming uses, and through special permit relief, if you can find that it won't be substantially more detrimental, to change that into the 2 dwelling units in multifamily development. So the only thing I asked this board to look at is those nonconformities were tied to the previously undivided subject property that's now been divided into 6 A&R lots. So when you evaluate whether or not it's substantially more detrimental, you get to look to the lot and the totality before everything got divided, when you're looking at those 2 new dwelling units converted from the various office space and other non-residential uses. So that's it.
And Mr. Chair, I will note that I didn't even include those additional structures in part of our calculations, the additional barn and the garage area on Lot 3 and the rest of the building that's going over to Lot 5, because I didn't think it was necessary. Even just looking at this lot alone, as Matt had said, is just a significant reduction. We do have those numbers, but just on Lot 4 alone, it's enough.
So what you're saying, I think, Jeff, is that we consider that as one lot?
When you...
to see if it's substantially less detrimental?
Yes, you get to look at it before it got carved up to the undivided lot, and if you go to the first, I think...
Before, the last application with the same process, I think, didn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Melissa...
So we have no... So I guess my quandary is, how do we do that without anticipation of what else might go on?
Well, I think you have a...
At this point again, or?
No, I think, if I may...
Yeah, go ahead.
You have a good sense that there's going to be 5 dwelling units and the other 5 A&R lots. And you have a lot of discretion here. I think they provided a lot of information, amount of impervious area, the amount of bedrooms, the square footage of the buildings, the rooms, whether or not bedrooms, the amount of impervious area, and whatever level of activity there might have been, during the earlier use. So you get to determine, do you think, it's clear if you look at it just as a snapshot from Lot 4, I think you could say it definitely appears to could be considered less intense in terms of impervious area, square footage of building, et cetera.
Yes.
But you do have the discretion to look at it before the larger subject property got divided. It doesn't mean you should go one way or the other. I'm just saying that's your right, that's your discretion.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Melissa, just so that I understand this, I understand the house, the apartment is coming down. The building attached to the apartment is coming down. The piece that looks like a swimming pool off to the right, is that coming down? It's on lot,
Everything there is coming down. Everything on Lot 5 is also coming down except for the corral. I can't remember what it's marked in the back, but it's... Stable. That shall remain, yes.
okay.
The
so-
stable on Lot 5 shall remain. That's actually, I don't know who went out there for a site walk, but that's one of the most beautiful pieces out on the site. So that will go with the house on Lot 5, though. It won't be part of Lot 4.
Oh, eventually they'll stay and be
Yes, it'll stay and be part of Lot
part of
5.
the project for Lot 5.
That's correct.
Maybe you ought to think before you're taking that pool away.
Yep, the actual proposed house will be a little bit behind where the pool, that small little dot pool house is today.
Before you do that, you may want to have a Bob Hicks ceremonial bash. Light a few candles and
He's across the street.
you'll be watching it.
Okay, all right, so that's great. I think this plan is greatly improved over the last reiteration of this. I like the fact that you're driving between the two buildings to get to the parking. You have substantial parking, especially with the impervious parking spots there. I think I can find a guy that can sell you the shrubs wholesale, so you don't have to worry about that. But I think this is a huge improvement. The only thing we would like to see, are some actual building heights on the plans. In my opinion, firm up the floor plans as to what you think that it's definitely going to be. Garage sizes.
On the Carriage House, Melissa, Unit 3 and 4, you said one was going to be 55 and over?
Will be deed restricted to 55 and over. As Jimmy noted, they both have first floor living...
You don't know, does it matter?
No, they both have first floor living area. You can see they pretty much...
Well, the question would be for the garage access. I'm not sure how Unit 4 would access the garage.
Yeah, they would have to, like the others, they have to walk out and around. There wouldn't be any, so Unit 3 would potentially have that direct link to the garage.
My thought one might be that might be the over 55 unit if it has better garage access, if that.
The building
Just a
unit.
thought.
Okay.
Because it looks like the other, Unit 4 would have a bit of a walk to carry the groceries versus the unit that has access directly to the garage.
Comments from the board?
What,
A vast improvement.
It is a vast improvement.
what size is the existing septic system?
We don't have an exact number, we just know what the uses are, but I don't know if we've done a Title V, but there is a system that sits off behind where the courtyard is, the brick courtyard in between the house and the apartment, and it sits in between the house and the pool. But we just have the records of what the uses were, the 5-bedroom house, the apartment, and then the 4,000 square foot office.
So that should be an 8-bedroom septic system?
Correct. That's what's there today.
Question for Matt. So on this plan, where does that water line enter into this subject property from Douglas Road now?
I think it's been disconnected. It came down the left-hand side of the office,
It has been disconnected?
and it was disconnected when they did the improvements recently on Christie Circle in Douglas.
Okay.
My understanding is they asked the Hicks, and I don't know if it was, I think it was the Hicks family, if they were interested in connecting, and they said no. I know there was some discussions with the abutters that connection has caused issues with the water supply and water, so I think it's been disconnected. And all of our services will be brand-new services off Main Street.
Right. Gas and
Single,
water.
individual
Yep.
services, residential services, and nothing will be on that connection.
Any other comments? Anybody in the audience would like to speak in favor or in opposition?
I have more of a question.
Question, sure, come on up.
So, Joe
We have your name for the record?
Joe Vazella, 9 Douglas Road. So we appreciate that they put the screen in the berm and the trees there because I'm one of the two homes that live right behind that road that would get all those lights driving down that area. I guess the question is, since it's all sitting in the RFA, and I do believe you probably need conservation to approve, disturbing that land, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, what happens if they decide, no, you can't disturb it?
Jeff?
If hypothetically this board were to ultimately issue a decision with those landscaping measures in place as part of your decision, and they're not allowed to move forward with that because of another board, they would then have to come back to this board and ask to modify that in some way as to presumably satisfy the intent. And I don't know to what degree that would affect other portions of the site, but they'd have to make good on that here. They can't ignore that. They have to come back to this board to make it.
So you'll get another bite at the apple if it doesn't go
Okay.
through the first time.
Get it. And then my only other question is just the way that it's written up for the appeal. It always says like unit, 4 units, but it doesn't say 4 2-bedroom units. So if the 2-bedroom component changes, do they need to come back to the board for that as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Come up to the microphone, please. Your name for the record?
Jen Vozella, 9 Douglas. If the berm and the deciduous trees at the back of the property are put in, I would definitely support this plan, certainly over anything we've seen so far.
Thank you.
And I will add with the conservation, and I know the planting plan, I can tell right away they're going to want, natural state species, they're not going to want ornamental trees. So the landscape plan may change to be native plantings. The planting plan will stay the same, it's just that the species might change to be something that is specific to what conservation prefers. Working with the meadow and the maintenance of that meadow, I see that being an issue that we would work out with conservation. And then that work around the earth and berm and the allowable disturbance in the riverfront, we would work with them specifically on what their preference is and the allowed use. Where it's all previously disturbed, usually they're in favor of, improvements and naturalization. We are limited to the amount of disturbance, but we'll be respecting that.
Okay. I just think that this particular application, as far as 4 units, has to be a huge improvement over Bob Hicks's construction business with dump trucks and backhoes and loaders and everything else. I know there hasn't been anything going on there for a while, but I just think that this is a nice improvement to the neighborhood. And any other comments?
I agree, I think it's a good improvement.
Yeah, I think we all concur with that.
I think it's good that you've reached out to the neighbors and sort of let them see what's going on here before they all come in and get, short notice on it, and you've had your discussions with them, and I think it seems to have been a good step forward, too. I think it's a good plan.
Night and day compared to the other previous proposals.
Okay, so does the board want to see some more detail on the plans? You're comfortable with what there is, but some more
Like you said,
detail?
we want to see the dimensions, the
Yep.
heights.
Yeah.
all
Yep,
that stuff.
I just think we should, just to make sure that our architect really measured right.
Sure. No, we can absolutely do that. I have notes here for the building heights, floor plans, and the garage sizes.
Yep, yep. Jeff?
Chair, it sounds like the board is obviously pretty supportive. These are actually going to be very, very complicated decision. I would appreciate it if you would allow us to start working on draft decisions, because there may be a number of conditions to capture some of the concerns and thoughts tonight, and I think it'd be a better decision if we got to start it earlier.
I have no problem with that.
Good idea.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Okay, if there's nothing else, we will continue this to November 17th. Have a motion?
So
to
moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Chair, members of the board.
Go Sox.
All right. We'll let them get gather their stuff.
You're done.
Good night.
Good. I coached when he was coaching, we coached hockey together. Oh, really?
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 73 Enmore Road.
For the record, I'm Dan Doherty.
Okay, and let me open the public hearing, Dan.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Jimmy must be running for office, he's shaking hands.
Holding babies?
All right, go ahead.
For the record, I'm Dan Doherty, representing the owners of 73 Enmore Road. I expected my engineer here. I don't, must be a miscommunication, so I hope you have plans up there for me. Essentially, this is a house that these people have bought. They're going to have, we're looking to really tear it down and do it again. The reason for the tear down in the first place is the woman, couple that's buying it is going to be in a wheelchair at some point. So this, if you notice in the plans, it'll have an elevator in it, and the existing house doesn't allow for us to really make that happen. So that was the main drive for it. And the variances that we'd be looking for are really just the tear down portion of it, but more importantly, the garage on the same level that you can get into the house to allow her to get into the elevator to get to your level above. The only setbacks that we're altering, if you notice on the lake side of the property, I guess a little background on this. This is on Nab Lake, and it's at the very end, like the Shipley Swamp end. So it's actually the third house in from the swamp. So recently, I know we've had some history with Dave Guthrie's project, so it'll be the house. There's only a house in between Dave's and this project. So in keeping with that, the level of the house, it's a two-story house now with the finished basement, and that's all it's going to be when we're done with it too. But it's just going to allow us to get the elevator in there, and that's the main drive. But if you look at the proposed porch area, that's what kind of brings us a little closer to the lot line on the adjacent property, which is 71. Other than that, I think we're asking for a little, like a 4.5-foot relief to allow the garage, and we're allowing, we need like a 5-foot on the side. We're 10, or whatever it is on the adjacent property side. The other thing we're going to be doing is we're working with the conservation. We've already gone before them for one meeting already. They were pretty receptive to this. There were no real issues. We're going to go back to them with a plan. Originally, off the porch, the owners wanted to put a deck off the front. If you notice, there is no deck on there. That's just the screen porch and then the stairs coming down from it. They wanted an outdoor deck on there for her, but we lobbed that off right from the get-go because of our experience with the Conservation Commission, so there's not one there. Presently, this is a pretty unique property in the sense from the street side. The right side of it is raised up pretty good, and it allows itself for a garage under. Originally, I think there was a garage space under where you see the garage now that had been converted to living space. So both levels will be finished levels. Other than that, I think it's
pretty cut and dry. We're not trying to go any closer to the lake. And we're not trying to really encroach on the street much. So other than that, we're asking for pretty simple reliefs, and hopefully you see it that way as well, yes, so.
Okay, Dan, what is it with Nab Lake? They want to build these big shacks over there.
Well,
Porches and decks, and it's just, this is this repeat of Elm Road here.
well, this is, if you look at the existing, this is how big the house is pretty much now. We're not adding too much to it.
Too much. So you're looking for side and front yard setbacks at 10 feet where 15 feet is required, and 20 feet 4 inches where 25 feet is required.
Yeah.
So 3 of them.
It's a pretty decent footprint to start with, so we could have worked with it had it been more receptive to the idea of getting an elevator in it. The heights just don't work. So that's really what's, driving it. I think their intention originally was to remodel what was there, but it just doesn't make sense with that situation.
How tall does it have to be, Dan, to accommodate an elevator?
Well, it's a matter of getting into the floor, too. I mean, you have to go in between floors, and we need a minimum of like almost 10 feet to get that accomplished.
So we're going for,
If you look at this property as well, it's very in keeping with what's down there. I mean, there's not a drastic difference between this property and the next two, the one on the side, and even, everyone's got garages, and everyone's got, the same amenities. There's nothing unique about this other than the fact that, like I say, we're make these renovations and doing the tear downs specifically for them to have an elevator. Most of the work that we're gonna be really up against is the patio work on the lakeside, to level that off, because it's very sloping, and, that's the part where I have to deal with an architectural, environmental architect to kind of develop a plan for the Conservation Commission, but that's not really, that's all patio work. Like I say, there's no decks, there's no variances or anything for that, so.
So on the right side, you guys have a chain link fence there now?
Yes.
Will that stay, or will a new fence be put in?
Yes. In fact, we elected to put, they have a septic system in there now that passed the Title V for them to purchase this, but they're also electing to upgrade that because of all the infrastructure work they're doing now. They don't want to have to deal with it 10 or 15 years down the road even. So the woman next door was actually nice enough to allow us to go through that side to do the testing, which we've already done, so.
But at the end of this, there will be some type of fence still there?
Yeah. Where's it going to be, in the front there? Is it the new septic? Is it? Yeah, well, if you look where it, like, roughly where it says lot 7 and 8, it'll be in that area. It's actually a very nice lot, if anyone's.
that garage is gonna be 2-car under or 1-car under?
2 under.
Any other questions from the board?
There's some mention that, I think, the staff report about the retaining wall. The wall you're building needs to be less than 6 feet?
Actually, any retaining walls that we're going to do, we're going to try to be terracing them. That's kind of how they are now in the front. So there's a lot of plantings. Right now, there's there's a bunch of overhang. It's actually a ton of growth over it. We're not even sure, to the right side of that, if you're looking at it from the street side, there's like a railroad-type portion of it, and it's all filled with plantings, so all of that stuff, I'm sure, is going to have, that's going to allow us the access to get up to the top of the hill. No?
I was just trying to find the,
With you?
Yeah, if you look, you see all the growth there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of terrace, it looks like one solid piece when until you get right on top of it in a way, but there's like a 4-foot section, and then it terraces up, and if you look from the street side even further down, it's even more terraced up. But you can see that underneath that big bow window, there's a single door there. That's an entrance to obviously get in there now, and that's what they use as the main entrance, because if you look on the other side, it doesn't really show in that picture, but it's really sketchy, like almost a 3-foot wide stone. Yeah, see how that, I mean, it's really doesn't, it's not very conducive for somebody that doesn't have any handicaps, so.
I guess my only comment would be that a lot of the ones we've seen tends to be a lot smaller dwelling into a much bigger dwelling, and this seems to be a little bit bigger, not a huge change to what it is there now. So consistent, when you take a boat ride around a lake, it's consistent with a lot of the homes you see there.
Well, like I say, I think that the beauty of this particular property is, for the first time, it's not a 800 square foot house, and I'm asking to turn it into a 2,200 square foot house. This is a decent sized house to begin with, so.
It's a big lot, too.
It's a good sized lot, but yeah, what I'm saying, it's one of the few. I mean, it really doesn't allow, you wouldn't normally tear down a house like this. So, but in this case, like I say, for their needs, that's what they're doing, so. And he's a retired surgeon, and his son is a surgeon at Royal General, so they really, part of this too is to get closer to the grandkids who live in Westford now, so. They're moving from Easton, Mass, so I think, I'm guessing that they're going to do okay with the sale of that one, so they're going to put some money into this one.
Okay. I'll ask if there's any comment from the audience, but the only person I see is our building inspector. He'll have plenty of comments later on, I'm sure.
He likes his comments all the way through the project.
Any other comments or questions from the board? No? Okay. We have a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we need a motion for a special permit for the reconstruction of a non-conforming dwelling with a larger volume area and building footprint. Variances to allow for new non-conforming side and front yard setbacks 10 feet, whereas 15 feet is required, and 20.4, whereas 25 is required. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Paul?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. You have
Thank
it. I have been neglectful of my duties tonight. They have 14 days to write a decision. It's a 20-day appeal period. You know the rest.
I do. This is a spring project anyway, I think, at this point.
Okay.
After we're done with it. We still get a file from the conservation.
Is this the one you retire on, Dan?
What's that?
Is this the one you're gonna retire on?
No, I have one more after this. So. I got enough to do for the next few years. Don't keep me in this business any longer than I need to be.
All right, so the meeting schedule has been revised. Is that what this little ditty is?
Well, it's the proposed meeting scheduled for 2022.
Yep.
So if there's any glaring issues the board sees in reviewing the dates and deadlines, we're more than happy to accommodate those changes. Otherwise, this would be the proposed schedule for 2022.
Are they all the third Wednesday? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty,
Yeah, the exception is December 14th. We pushed it up just to get it a little bit further away from the Christmas holiday. So that would be the second Wednesday of that month.
you better send us all an email, like 3 or 4 of them. We'll all be standing here, for sure. Okay, any correspondence or updates?
Sir, not for me.
I think we're good? Okay, can we have a motion to close the meeting? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.